thinking about including Green Arrow on this list, but then I thought of something even better. Someone who has a getup that even Green Arrow's original Robin Hood look cannot hold a candle to. Get ready for Hawkeye in his purple pantless number, now complete with his fancy headband. Admittedly, this was a costume that Hawkeye donned upon his return to the circus, or at least a return to the circus, but still, my goodness, what a look. It feels like a bit of a play on Robin Hood, but of course in Hawkeye's classic purple and without any pants or tights for that matter. Just him in a very deep V-neck tunic here. Oh, and with purple riveted metal-looking bracelets. It's honestly quite the look. Needless to say, it didn't last too long. Oh boy, this one isn't just wild because of the look of the outfit, it's wild because of the retcon that came along with it. How do I explain? Well, during New 52, Starfire basically lost her memories and ended up finding, kissing, and teaming up with Jason Todd's Red Hood and his team of outlaws. Although she and Jason were thankfully not made an item, she and Arsenal kind of were. How do you feel about Arsenal and Starfire together? Who do you ship Starfire with anyways? Or who do you ship Arsenal with? What is your favorite comic book ship in general? Let me know in the comments. Anyways, to go along with her very free love attitude here, Starfire sported a very tiny costume. Now granted, Starfire has been implied to be somewhat powered by the sun, or sometimes I think she's absorbed sun energy. It's not consistent, but it's been a thing here and there, and she's also no stranger to wearing something akin to a bathing suit in terms of her costume. She also comes from a world where, you know, this attire is more custom, she's more used to it, it's what she's comfortable in, which honestly is fine and makes sense for the character in most cases. But this took that idea of her being, you know, more scantily clad to an extreme, with her wearing something smaller even than a bikini, and of course with the bonus of her losing some of her agency in terms of how she dressed, since she was struggling with her memory at the time. So she wasn't entirely herself here, which, you know, makes this costume feel a little icky. I have to say, I never expected to see Havoc dressed this way. I think you know what I'm about to talk about because it's also one of my favorite looks for both Madeline Pryor and Alex Summers. Even though it's ridiculous, we're talking about the Goblin Prince. I think one of my favorite things about this weird getup is how tattered it looks on everyone. Like, what are people getting up to in this that they're so tattered? Is Limbo full of rough edges or protruding edges that you just like constantly are getting your costume hooked onto? I need to figure out what is happening here. But I have to say, honestly, I love it. That being said, I also think the iconic shininess of this black look is great, and that's how I've always seen it, as shiny and polished in my mind. But we have to also admit that yes, this costume is super ridiculous, and the fact that Havoc got a matching look to Maddie is super weird. It's super ridiculous for sure. But you know, hey, at least it's equality. At least Maddie's wearing it and so is Alex. They're wearing it together as a unit. Speaking of unconventional looks, next up we also have another daring black number. This one comes to us from DC Comics, and it is none other than Cosmic Boy. Cosmic Boy, for some reason, did not have anything that they were wearing that resembled space at this time, or anything cosmic. They instead were wearing a black kind of corset with a deep V-neck attached to booty shorts, black gloves, and black booties. It's just such an iconic and eye-popping look, honestly. Although I guess this was the 70s, so maybe this is what everyone was wearing back then? I don't know. I wasn't alive in the 70s, so if this was you and you were sporting this look and you were rocking it, please let me know, because honestly, I probably would wear this look today, and I think maybe this is a look we should bring back. What does Cosmic Boy even look like today? Oh, that's what he looks like. At least it's striking. The modern day look for Cosmic Boy just kind of looks boring to me. Maybe we should just bring back this look, actually. Just do that instead. The sad truth for our next point is that this is a character who's never really had a great look. Sadly, the look that he has now is one of the looks that he's had for honestly the longest time, and it's because it's the best of what I would say is kind of the worst of costumes. That's right, we're talking about Wonder Man here. Poor Wonder Man, poor Simon, the disrespect that we have shown him in terms of the costumes that we've dressed him in. It's just sad. He's such a cool character, and yet he usually has honestly such dumb looks. This is a particularly dumb one though. We're talking about the West Coast Avengers costume, the orange and blue number that he wore when he was on the West Coast Avengers. It's kind of got like a W on it that goes down into like the shape of an X sort of as well. There's like these big yellow pieces on the back. I don't know what's happening with this look, but I'll tell you what it is. It's not a good look. And needless to say, it was very short-lived, which is saying something about someone like Simon, who, like I said, is used to wearing some pretty bad costumes, honestly. Oh boy, this next look is very iconic because it's very different from anything that we would see this character wear. We're talking about Batman here, and I think if you know Batman's costume history, you maybe know what I'm about to say next. We're talking about the rainbow suits. Honestly, I love how colorful these are, but that's what makes them so weird and unique, is the fact that Batman is usually known for dressing in pretty dark colors, usually black, sometimes blue, sometimes a bit of bright yellow peppered in here or there, but not usually rainbow. We don't get a whole range of colors with Batman normally. That being said, this time we did, and even better, this wasn't just a change because Batman wanted to like try something new, or he thought, hey, this is super fashionable. This was a change that actually served a purpose in the comics. There's a reason for it. What was the purpose here? Distraction. That's right, this was a distraction tactic. Batman used this to protect his sidekick, his ally, the boy wonder, Robin. Honestly, I gotta say, I think it would work pretty well for me. I'm used to seeing Batman dressed in pretty dark colors, so if he just came out in like a bright orange suit, I would be like, wait, what is happening? Who is this guy? I don't know where to look. Is that Batman? Is he okay? I wouldn't even notice the boy wonder myself. This next point might honestly get me into some trouble, I know, with some of you in the comments. It usually gets me in trouble when I talk about it, but I'm willing to take that. I'll take the trouble, give it to me. I know this is a controversial point, but we're gonna talk about Sue Storm's fantastic cutout costume. Now, I do know that there was a reason behind this costume, so yes, it was to showcase the fact that Sue was kind of different at this time because she was being possessed by her alter ego, Malice. Malice is basically like Sue Storm unhinged. It's like Sue Storm if she just woke up and realized, you know what, maybe life isn't so good. Maybe my husband Reed is kind of a jerk. Maybe it's okay to be a woman and be mad. But also if she was just evil, because that's really what Malice is all about now. And also the fact that, you know, Malice is, sometimes she's like Sue's alter ego, sometimes she's like another entity that possesses her. This is an evil entity, and it's often presented as being, like I said, a sort of dark side of Sue Storm taking hold of her. And this costume change was meant to represent that change to Sue's psyche, which is obviously a lot more of an edgy look for Sue. This is not something we normally see her in. However, the fact that Malice is presented here as another entity, something that is both a part of Sue but is also very separate from her, that takes control of her, means that this costume change also happened with like a little lack of agency, I would say. In my opinion too, this is kind of a weird change because Malice is like an evil side of Sue that like always has to be erased if it ever shows up. It wasn't a part of herself that she just reconciles with, which is ultimately why I don't like this look for her. I just think the whole Malice thing is kind of weird, and the way they dealt with it is kind of weird. I don't mind the sexy element for Sue. I think Sue could be sexy. I just like her to be the one that says, you know what, I'm going to be sexy today. I'm okay and I choose to be sexy. Not this evil half of her that has to be eliminated, you know, Malice. For this next little number, we're going to the movies, specifically the Batman movie. Yeah, we're gonna talk about that look. We're gonna talk about the bat nipples. Can I say nipples? I think I can say nipples, so I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say nipples. This costume is just a lot, which is why it makes the cut. I don't think I need to say too much about it, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. Nipples. Moving back over to Marvel, every time I revisit this look for Professor X, it gets more ridiculous for me. Every time I learn more about it, I think, why does this exist? Who is this for? Is it really for Charles? Is it really for Lilandra? We're talking about the Shi'ar exoskeleton, or as I like to call it, the Shi'ar exosuit, but that's not an official term. I don't know if anyone else uses that term, just FYI, but that's what I like to say. The Shi'ar exosuit is one that was gifted to Charles by Lilandra Naramani, his love. It is made by the Shi'ar and allows those who are unable to walk the ability to walk using telepathic energy. There is a downside though. The telepathic energy that is required to basically pilot this suit makes you exhausted, to the point that when Professor X joins his own X-Men in a fight against Magneto in Fatal Attractions, he literally needs Jean Grey to accompany him to even be able to walk with his X-Men in the exoskeleton. I'm sorry, but Charles, just leave the suit at home, my man. Don't wear the suit if it's going to limit you that much, especially if you're going up against Magneto. What were you thinking? Also, although I'm not sure if this comes up, it does look like it's made of some kind of metal. I don't think that's ever addressed, but I just mean, you know, get this man a glass wheelchair, get him a glass hover chair, get him anything else. Oddly enough, Charles did prefer to use his hover chair as opposed to using the exoskeleton, apparently. I understand, he's probably like mentally exhausted. Our final point is one that's new new to me, and I just want to say I'm so glad I found this out so that I could share it with you. Initially, I was going to talk about 90s Doctor Strange on this list. Admittedly, 90s Doctor Strange is a pretty weird look, but this is weirder, honestly. We're talking about 90s Dr. Fate. For some reason, Dr. Fate in this era had a host who decided he was just gonna basically reject Naboo, reject the helm, and he melted it down to make a golden dagger. I'm sorry, what? I didn't even know that was an option. But hey, I guess it is. I guess, you know, you found a loophole. This has to be the edgiest Dr. Fate I have ever seen. And although it looks ridiculous, I am honestly so happy that it exists. Thank you for making my weird costume dreams come true.
Crazy Quilt was a talented painter living a double life as a crime lord because, of course he was. He uses his paintings to leave clues for his henchmen about his various plans. He was double-crossed, but fought back. However, in the confusion, his eyesight was damaged. Crazy Quilt desperately wants his vision back and undergoes experimental surgery. The surgery only partially worked. Quilt could now see, but only in very vivid colors. This drove him insane, and the crazy was added to his name. This is also when he first donned his iconic colorful suit. I desperately hope this thing was actually made of quilting material. Imagine being a seamstress in this universe and receiving that request. The other part of his costume is the helmet with colorful lights on top. The helmet is where his powers come from. They include hypnosis, laser beams, and blinding lights. He would also sometimes use a more physical approach to escaping his enemies. He would carry around paint and then throw it on them when he wanted to escape. Crazy Quilt, despite being driven mad, he is still very intelligent. In one universe, the New 52, he invented what he coined as the healing stitch. It unravels a cell's structure and then stitches it back together during the process, de-aging it. After one former football player was bounced out of pro ball, he decided to take on the job of a hitman in quite a peculiar outfit. Flying Tiger first made his way on panel in Spider-Woman number 40, hired to end the web slinger. His amazing costume is a tiger suit with armor underneath. It's equipped with blue wings so he can fly. It's a bit of an odd choice considering the average tiger is not able to fly. So where did the inspiration for a flying tiger come from? It's been suggested that it was inspired by a group of fighter pilots called the Flying Tigers. There is also a football team called the Memphis Tigers. Maybe he was a player. We don't know yet. We don't even know the character's real name. What we do know is that he isn't genetically enhanced in any way. He is about as strong as the average American football player. He is good at being a hitman. Before being defeated by Spider-Woman, he had a 100% success rate. Up next is another animal-themed villain that commonly faces Captain America, and he does it wearing a rooster suit. I wish I was kidding. His first appearance in Captain America 183, his suit of choice is blue with a red and orange rooster mask, talon-like gloves, and red boots with claws attached. He pulls the look together with a red and orange tail feather ensemble. He looks great, to say the least. Gamecock has lived in Harlem and has worked under the crime boss Mr. Morgan for years, eventually leaving to participate in a competition called Bloodsport. He doesn't last very long and is doomed dead before turning up again as a retiree from villain life. He fights using the metal talons on his gloves and feet, as well as using his acrobat and martial arts training. His villain name is also a phrase meaning a rooster that is trained for fighting. On brand. Dr. Spectro is on my list for my next game night. He is literally a walking twister mat. He doesn't even need to take the suit off. He can just lay down and let people walk all over him. That's what Captain Atom does anyway. The suit is black with lots of red and yellow dots and blue dots all over every inch. He also has these incredible red monoblock sunglasses and a red electric scooter hoverboard thing as his main mode of transport. This is the newer version of Dr. Spectro, but the original from the 60s was a light-powered scientist turned villain that originally started out with a striped costume, presumably to mimic light rays. He fought using color and light to create powerful energy rays. The spotted Spectro is a different guy that was mistakenly identified as Dr. Spectro, the previous one, by a reporter, and he just rolled with it. This guy's name is Thomas Emery. In Thomas's universe, Spectro isn't actually a person. He is a fake villain the government created to cover up a secret project. Of course, Thomas made him very real and very chic. His powers are also very similar with powerful light energy rays, but he can also manipulate light and color to create confusing illusions. Dr. Dome is a villain that met a pretty unfortunate fate after the multiverse collapsed during the Crisis on Infinite Earths event of 1986. He was totally erased. Even his wacky costume wasn't enough to keep him in people's heads. Dome wore a metal dome on his head. It looks kind of like an upside down wok pot. He has a sometimes green, sometimes orange jumpsuit with yellow epaulettes on the shoulders, and his eyes are technically under the dome but are always drawn on top. He has a very, very thin curled mustache on his face as well. He is an enemy to Plastic Man, and his name is suggested to be a parody of Dr. Doom from the Marvel Comics. Eventually, Dr. Dome is brought back to life during the Dark Crisis rebirth of the multiverse in 2022 and 2023. Thank goodness, we missed him. Now here's the thing, when I look at the redesigns for Owlman, I can believe exists. He looks pretty menacing, and owls eat bats, so the owl part makes sense. However, the first design for this man in Justice League of America number 29, he deserves financial compensation for. It looks like he bought everything he's wearing a size too big. He has a cape that kind of looks like a bed sheet, the sock boot things, which were a common design of the time, and his actual suit is what looks like a loose gray onesie. The best part though that I'm so glad I get to share with you is his mask. It's a pretty brown owl head with two incredibly round massive eyes. It's beautiful. This character existed at a time when villains were drawn like their heroes so that readers knew exactly who was for who. In fact, Owlman is intended to be corrupt Batman. Batman's suit does fit better though, I guess billionaire can afford tailoring. The Owlman mantle is taken up by multiple people, so he looks a lot more menacing as he goes. My favorite is the Crime Syndicate version. Like, look at his cape, that's so cool, and his eyes are giving exactly what they need to get with all that glowing going on. Owlman is super smart, but he does have limited mind control powers, he's a martial artist, and he has advanced healing. You can also catch him causing trouble on the screen as well as in the LEGO Batman games. I also really like his fit there. Eric Morden, or Mr. Nobody, has got a pretty interesting look all on his own, but the most chaotic version of him lives in his team of chaos causers, the Brotherhood of Dada. The Brotherhood has costumes of all different colors and shapes, but one big thing in common, they are all outrageous. Mr. Nobody is pretty tame compared to everything else. He is all black with a heart-shaped hole in his chest. Sleepwalk wears some striped blue pants, a high-collared blue shirt missing the shoulders, and has black circles drawn on her eyes. The Fog is just a cloud of death fog. Frenzy wears a very tall top hat and a blue suit shaped like a rectangle covered in various patterns, swirls, and colors. Quiz is head to toe neon green, and kind of like a neon green yellow and covered in red question marks. He also has various silver tubes all over his body. Agent has green pants, a hot pink jacket, and what looks like a cage over his chest. He also has some pretty cool spiky hair too. The group commonly fought against and were foiled by Doom Patrol. I love this next fit. If I could steal one, it would be this one. Deimos is the son of Ares and an enemy to Wonder Woman. He is the god of terror, which is already iconic, but his hair is what helps him create the fear. It is made of live snakes that, if they bite you, cause overwhelming levels of terror. On top of his slithering locks is a helmet, also with snakes. His gloves are green and also made of snakes. He has a green style kilt, not made of snakes, and a studded belt. And some pretty incredible dinosaur looking boots. They are interesting to say the least. He also has access to something called the Helm of Serpents. 4 enchanted snakes attack a victim from all sides, poisoning them. He is known for being calculating and manipulative. Joseph Meach has had quite the journey from high diver to custodian to composite Superman. Joseph had planned a pretty epic diving routine. Unfortunately, it was the kind of dive that could only be done once, if you know what I mean. Superman got Joseph back on his feet by not only saving him from the fall, but also getting him a job in the Superman Museum. Unfortunately, Joseph was a bitter person, and the anger he was feeling was transformed into a hatred of Superman. He was being bombarded by Superman's face every day, so. One night, the lifeless duplicates of the Legionnaires in the museum were struck by lightning, and poor Joseph happened to be standing right beside. But he gained the powers of all Legion members, including shape-shifting. This is what he used to create the costume that was half Batman and half Superman. But his really interesting choice is that he just decided to turn his skin green. Composite Superman continued to be a thorn in Superman's side until ultimately being destroyed by an energy blast. The suit was pretty cool though. And finally, we have to give this guy the time of day because he would do the same for us. This is Calendar Man. He is naturally obsessed with calendars and holidays and will literally theme his crimes around holidays or seasons. His civilian name is Julian Gregory Day, which if he was born with that name, that's a setup. He's literally named after calendar. He was first introduced in Detective Comics 259 in 1958. Right off the bat, this man is giving us a full fashion collection. We have his summer look in which he is dressed like the sun. It is an orange suit that emits heat-concentrated heat. Then we have a winter look, a snowman suit with a top hat, scarf, and mittens. Then for spring, he's created a suit resembling a daisy, complete with a petal necklace and daisy buttons. For fall, a sensible yellow mini dress with a tree on the front and red tights and cape. This is not even the most dedicated he's been to the bit. He lives in a satellite orbiting Earth that is filled with different types of calendars. blunders. This next time we see him, briefly, he's given up his eye for a super eye that shoots lasers and is also sporting 8 new outfits. Where does he get them from? His final outfit of the issue is the one that ends up coming back and becoming his main look. It's a red and white suit with a cape made of calendar pages and a calendar sash belt. Later versions of him, like the one cameoed in the film Suicide Squad, have featured his prison jumpsuit look. You know it's him because he has tattooed the months around his head.
At number 10, we have Green Lantern's Power Ring upgrade that allows the rings to communicate with the other Green Lanterns in the universe. This feature, added by the Guardians of the Universe, is a huge upgrade that gives the ring a major advantage. Although there has always been an emergency beacon offered as part of the ring's powers, this is only meant to be used to relay to other Green Lanterns in times of distress. The homing beacon is a fantastic way to bring all the powers of the Green Lanterns together at any time, giving them that extra support whenever it's needed. Or even aside from combat situations, this is a great power to allow Green Lanterns to communicate with one another about strategy to better prepare themselves in the planning stages. Considering there are plenty of Green Lanterns throughout the universe, it would otherwise be extremely difficult to ensure that everyone is where they need to be at any given moment. Pretty nifty, and an underrated ability if you ask me. At number 9, we have Sam Wilson's Captain America suit. This is a huge upgrade for this suit, giving it vibranium wings, Gatling guns, and a nice little clip for the shield right on his back. While Captain America's suit usually doesn't change very drastically over the years, it's pretty obvious that it's due to the fact that Cap is strong enough that he doesn't need to rely on his suit to help him. He's usually more of a leader, with his most valuable assets being his military strategy and brute strength. But when he hands off the moniker to Falcon, the classic suit and shield get a huge upgrade. And not because Falcon needs the support of his suit, but because why not? I mean, Falcon has to have wings, so already a Captain America suit with wings is enough. But throwing those guns on it really brings the suit to a new level. And he still gets to keep the shield. I think immortal retired Steve Rogers will sleep soundly at night knowing Sam is on the job with this upgraded suit. At number 8, we have Captain Marvel's Nega Bands. Although you may know Marvel's suit as already having the Nega Bands as part of the package, this wasn't always the case. Before he acquires them, he is still extremely powerful from being empowered by a cosmic entity named Zoe, later properly realized as Eon. He's able to fly faster than light speed, has superhuman strength, and is also able to teleport anywhere in the universe instantly. So it's hard to imagine how a suit upgrade would offer any sort of improvement, but it does. When the Nega Bands are added to the equation, Marvel is then able to travel between reality and the negative zone whenever he wants. But that's not all, at all. He can also absorb any energy that is coming at him, be it a powerful blast from an enemy or even the energy of the sun. They are also capable of providing healing powers and increased strength. They even keep the wearer from requiring food, air, water, and sleep, which is pretty helpful. They do have their limitations though. They don't protect from drowning or gas-based attacks. And this actually leads to Captain Marvel's demise when he's inflicted with a poison gas by Nitro that actually gives him terminal cancer. But anyway, let's not get too dark here. These Nega Bands are a huge upgrade for Marvel, and that's all that matters in terms of this suit. At number 7 is the Superman Godfall suit upgrade. Now, considering Superman's unmatched strength, he doesn't really have much use for upgrades in that regard, but this suit upgrade is all about the looks and the motorcycle. In the Superman Godfall storyline, Superman has lost his memory and is living in what appears to be a dystopian city called Kandor, alongside his wife Lila. It's a state we aren't used to seeing Superman in. He's got a job, working at a kitchen, and appears to be living a pretty human life, without even his secret identity needing to be hidden. And his costume is just, it's so cool and Blade Runner-esque with a Tron-style motorcycle to boot. I mean, who doesn't want to see Superman having access to a motorcycle when he's facing off against dystopian villains? It's just a great reimagining of the character and the suit he wears, and I think it's a fair addition to this list. Upgrades don't always have to be based on abilities and features, you know. Looks matter too. Okay, at number 6, I'm putting Blade's silver armor from Blade Vampire Hunter from 1999. Taking a break from the usual mysterious green or black trench coat, this suit offers a whole new image for Blade. Now, I don't know if I'd say this is his best look ever, but I will say that it's a big upgrade in terms of utility. Having armor seems like a pretty obvious call for a vampire hunter from the get-go, so when I found the silver armor, I knew it had to make an appearance on the list. And the main reason why this suit ranks higher on the list is that silver is known to be a weakness for vampires, which are naturally a threat to a vampire hunter. This suggests that aside from the defense upgrade, this suit also gives Brooks a huge added advantage against his typical foes, on top of the obvious protective advantage. Even though it only sticks around for 2 years, this is a good upgrade for the character that offers much more protection than his typical garb. With a silver chestplate and silver gauntlets, this costume just gives Eric Brooks a more reasonable level of protection and sort of fits him into the category of superhero a bit more. At least in the traditional sense of how he looks. I still think it was the right move to bring him back to his original black leather jacket after this suit ran its course, but it is a good moment for Blade's armor in the grand scheme of things. At number 5, we've got a controversial one, Wolverine's heated claws. Although this upgrade is known to be slightly silly and short-lasting, I think it's probably one of the best straight-up upgrades on this list. It's not an attachment or an aesthetic update, but a good old-fashioned upgrade of the pre-existing power, and it's Wolverine's primary weapon of choice, so getting to keep using the same old equipment except now it can heat up to extreme temperatures, that's pretty good. And what makes it even cooler is how the heated claws are formed. When Wolverine is resurrected from death, the excess energy left over from his body's healing process goes into his claws and brings the adamantium to extreme temperatures. Now remember, these claws are made of one of the most durable metals in the universe, so even though heated metal tends to soften, you shouldn't expect his adamantium claws to do the same. These things are driving right into any and every enemy like a hot knife through soft butter. Ew, that's a weird visual. But it's true, and not to mention, this dude just came back from the dead, so you can expect him to be pretty angry and ready to take it out on anyone in his way. Okay, at number 4 is the Iron Spider suit. Now, this is such a huge upgrade that the word upgrade doesn't even do it justice. Now, if you've seen my list of the top 10 Spider-Man suits, you know that the hero has had many different suits and they are all useful in their own right. But this one is probably the most drastic change that the suit endures in the right direction. Designed by Tony Stark himself, this upgrade changes literally every aspect of the suit for the better. It gets these 4 spider legs with grips and cameras on the ends of them, allowing the wearer to use them to climb walls hands-free as well as use the cameras to see around corners. He's also got the same internal HUD system as Iron Man's suit, giving him heightened senses using the computer's intel, not to mention the sophisticated mask system that offers full filtration to keep him from facing a similar fate to Captain Marvel. And a gliding system, giving him more hang time between web swings. It's a huge upgrade to the suit that totally changes the game for Spider-Man and offers him a whole new set of capabilities with which to defend himself and to best all the bad guys. At number 3, we've got Iron Man's Hulkbuster suit, which is an insanely powerful upgrade to the typical Iron Man suit, as you can probably already tell by the name. Now, just like Spidey, Iron Man has seen tons of different iterations of his suit, but in this case, this upgrade has a very specific function: to bust the Hulk. To fight the Hulk, yes. The goal is to get the suit to a point where it's ready to take on the Hulk. Otherwise known as Iron Man's Mark 44 armor, this upgrade gives Tony Stark all the tools he needs to take down a bad guy bigger than those he's used to. This thing has a missile launcher, a grappling hook, and something called automatic prehensile propulsion technology, which is basically a function that allows the armor to assemble on its own when it's called upon. And considering the Hulk's impulsive reputation, this feature would probably come in handy if the Hulk suddenly decided he wasn't on Tony's side anymore. On top of all this, he's got the built-in rams, which are used to add that extra oomph to Iron Man's punches. And if he decides that brute force is no use against the Green Giant, he's also got sleeping gas built into this thing. Although it's not super useful in the movies, this feature will definitely find its benefit at some point down the line if applied properly. At number 2 are Spider-Man's web shooters. I know this is the second Spider-Man upgrade on this list, but it's just a classic upgrade that must be mentioned. I mean, I would even argue that this is the ultimate superhero suit upgrade. And what makes this one really special is that it's the first time we're really shown how much of a scientific genius Peter Parker is. Sure, his character is established on the basis that he's very smart and proficient in biology, but this invention basically allows him to be Spider-Man. Not only does he design the shooters themselves, but he creates the web fluid, which is arguably one of the most useful and durable materials in the world. This list features plenty of upgrades that take an already powerful suit and bring it to a new level, but this entry is an upgrade that turns a guy with superhuman strength and reflexes into, well, Spider-Man. We all know about this one, and it's almost seen as a given at this point, but it really deserves credit for what it really is and was at the time of its creation. A huge step into Spider-Man's career as a superhero. Alright, at number 1 we have the Batman Justice Buster upgrade, which ranks high on the list because once again, the word upgrade is a total understatement on this one. I break this one down in more depth than the top 10 Batman suits list, but basically, this suit is designed to take on the Justice League. So every element of this suit has some sort of benefit against each of the members of the Justice League, giving the mortal Bruce Wayne an unmatched advantage against any opponents, not just the Justice League. Considering the suit he dons before the Justice Buster is just his typical costume, having a mechanized suit that has processors that work faster than the Flash can move is a pretty big upgrade. And besides the many features specific for taking down the members of the Justice League, this suit just has huge defense stats and attack strength that would help Bruce in any combat situation.
Number 10, Superman. This version of Superman, the one in the Kingdom Come story by Mark Waid, with art by Alex Ross and Mike Carlin, is set in an alternate reality, Earth 22. Meaning, it isn't a baseline redesign for the character. For that matter, it isn't even a complete overhaul of Superman's costume. The only difference they made to the costume was that Clark's hair had silver streaks to show his age, and the yellow parts of his emblem were changed to black. Otherwise, his costume was a very classic Superman getup. But those two little changes, plus just the overall style of the art itself, did something to this Superman that for me, it just makes me tingle, you know? Number 9. Daredevil. When Daredevil first came on the scene in 1964, his look was different from the one most readers are used to. Instead of his normal color scheme, Daredevil instead had a predominantly yellow suit, with only parts of the suit being the familiar red color. Now, in my humble opinion, the yellow and red suit has its own perks. The overall design of the suit is fairly similar to what would come later. But I will agree that when he showed up in Daredevil number 7 with the all-red suit, courtesy of artist Wally Wood, it was an instant stick. It was more in keeping with the darker, brooding, street-level nature of his stories. And it stuck for, well, pretty much the rest of his publication. Hey guys, before we go on, I just want to say a quick little thanks for watching. I also want to say thanks for those of you that leave comments below. I read a lot of them, and you guys always have interesting and helpful things to say. So thanks. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I won't forget to get on with this video. Number 8, the Punisher logo. Okay, I want to talk about this one for a couple of reasons, but let's just say it. Straight up, it's controversial, which always makes for a good discussion. Basically, the classic Punisher logo that has been around since the 70s got a bit of a redesign this year. Punisher has joined the hand, and in doing so, he has changed his logo to resemble that of an Oni. There's also reason to believe that the symbol may reflect his status within the organization. Unfortunately, there's also a real-world political reason for the change. The logo itself was being adopted by real-world police officers, which is kinda odd considering Punisher is pretty anti-authority, and was even worn by some of those who were involved in the Capitol riots, leading Marvel to make a politically motivated change. Love it or hate it, it is the new look for the character right now. I'm not totally opposed to it, but I know at least a few of you guys out there are a little upset. Let me know what you think below. Number 7. X-Men. I don't know if you know what the original costumes of the X-Men looked like back in the day. Yellow and dark navy blue with yellow and black boots and gloves. Except for Beast, who is still vaguely human and didn't wear boots or gloves, and Iceman, who was more like Snowman. The matching costumes definitely show that this was a team, even with their different and unique mutant abilities. There have been many iterations of X-Men costumes since, but for me, when the characters themselves got their own individual costumes in issue 39 of the comic, that's when they really came into their own. The leader of the team, Cyclops, has generally used this look and variations on this look ever since. Mostly. The other members took a bit more time to find iconic looks, namely Angel and Beast, who eventually got his blue fur. Number 6. Star-Lord. When Star-Lord showed up in Marvel Preview number 4, he was a far cry away from what most fans have come to recognize him as. I think he kinda looks a lot like Owlman from the Watchmen comics, to be honest, but even Peter's personality was much different. The tagline on the comic was, He stalks the galaxy, one man, on a mission of cosmic vengeance. That doesn't sound like the typical wisecracking, sarcastic young hero we know today. Even before Chris Pratt took on the character, Star-Lord was revamped in the 2006 and 2007 Annihilation event, where he formed the Guardians of the Galaxy and got an incredible new costume change, ditching the more cow-like headpiece for a full helmet and the skin-tight outfit for a more loose-fitting uniform. It just gives his character a much more distinctive look, in my opinion. Number 5. Green Lantern. Technically, this point can be argued with. This isn't so much a redesign as a wholly different character, but ask anyone who isn't deeply knowledgeable of the comics who the original Green Lantern is, and you're likely to hear them say Hal Jordan. Now, I'm just guessing here, but I think that has a lot to do with the fact that Hal Jordan's look, compared to the one of Alan Scott, it's just so much more iconic. Alan Scott sported a black cape with a red collared top, green pants, and a sweet, normal-looking belt. Sure, he is a different character and not technically an official Green Lantern, but when Hal Jordan came in with a green and black suit with hints of white, it just stuck. Let's just not talk about the movie version, okay? Number 4. Robin, Damian Wayne. We talked about Batman in the last video, so it's only fair we talk about his ward. Specifically, I want to talk about the costume of the newest Robin, and Batman's son, Damian Wayne. If we go back in time and look at the classic original Robin's costume, well, let's just say it kinda goes with the costume of the Caped Crusader at the time. In other words, it's incredibly impractical. I'm also thinking the bare legs wouldn't bode too well in the streets of Gotham, but that's just me. The costume was evolved over the years for sure, but the one that Damian wears when he appears as Robin in 2006, it's just like, ooh, I like it. You know, it's kind of hard to get specific on what makes this one so much better, I'll be honest. But if we just slap up some comparison pics, I mean, it's just better. Number 3. Ultimate's Hawkeye. The Ultimate Universe in Marvel sees a lot of changes to character designs that honestly kind of reflect the MCU looks just a little bit. Overall, I think the outfits are improvements on the originals. I want to give a big nod to Ultimate Thor. But I think the best of the character overhauls would have to be Hawkeye's Ultimate Universe costume. The black vest, the crew cut, and the red glasses make him look even more like a secret agent, which he is. It's also a bit edgier and darker than his 616 counterpart, which most of the Ultimates are, considering the comics are aimed at teens. Fight me in the comments, but I definitely prefer this costume. Number 2. Batgirl. Batgirl first appeared in Detective Comics 359, sporting an all-black costume with a yellow bat symbol, belt, boots, and gloves. Personally, I didn't have much of a problem with this look. I thought it was simple, for sure, and quite basic. Just like the other members of the Bat family, Barbara Gordon also got a ton of redesigns through the years. But in 2014, when she got a redesign thanks to artists Cameron Stewart, Brendan Fletcher, and Babs Tarr, the new look, much like Damian's Robin suit, just made more sense. The costume was much more practical. More of a jacket kind of design with a removable cape. The belt was more casual, more like a holster design. Her design had much more personality too, this way, which really works for the character herself, who also has a strong personality. Number 1. Nightwing. Nightwing first appeared after leaving the Bat family in Tales of the Teen Titans Volume 1, number 44, and his costume was, honestly, not too bad. It was goofy for sure. Don't get me started on the collar, but with those gold wing designs, it was pretty cool. I'd be a fool though if I didn't say that the blue V costume that debuted in 1996 is the best suit that character has ever worn, if we don't take into account his newest DC Rebirth suit, which is basically just a slightly updated version of this one. The simple blue bird across the chest and into the arms, mixed with the rest of the suit being black, yeah, it's a simpler look, but one that ultimately works better than any other. Number 10. Nova. Alright, starting off our little list today is going to actually be more of a different version of a character of the same name rather than a redesign. There have been multiple Nova Primes throughout the history of the universe. Richard Rider is absolutely the main one, and he is fantastic. I absolutely adore his Nova Prime costume. But when we first saw Samuel Alexander in Point One, Number 1 in 2011 sporting the black Nova helmet, I'm sorry, it just did something special for me. I really enjoy it. Granted, being a younger, more slender guy, he doesn't exude the same kind of power that Richard Rider does. But that doesn't make him any less powerful, and it doesn't make his costume any less impressive. Also, Disney, if you're listening, let me play Samuel Alexander, please. I want to wear his costume. Thank you. Number 9. Beast. We mentioned in the last video the way the X-Men uniforms were all essentially variations of the same costume. Hank McCoy was a shorter, stocky guy. He had huge hands and feet, and his original costume didn't even have gloves or boots, which helped him to stand out even more. Hank was the bruiser on the team for sure, with his mutations being strength and agility. But while he may have been a somewhat odd-looking guy, he was still fairly human-looking. That is, until Amazing Adventures number 11 in 1972. Hank got a job at Roxxon, basically, where he developed a serum that acted as a catalyst for activating latent mutations for short periods of time, and then he drank it. The effects of this serum ended up making Hank grow gray fur. His muscles expanded, his ears became large and pointed, he got claws, and his canine teeth grew and became fangs. The serum further increased his superhuman agility, endurance, speed, and strength, as well as enhancing his senses. In Amazing Adventures 14, his fur would become blue thanks to Quasimodo, and he's been the same ever since. Whoa, slow your roll there. I gotta talk about how great you are. Every time you like and subscribe, it sends a ripple through the YouTube algorithm that makes this channel look just a bit more attractive. So thanks for doing that. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook as well. And I'll carry on making this video. Number 8, Scarlet Witch. Now, I don't know if everyone's seen the WandaVision show, but it's definitely one you should check out if you are a Marvel fan. One of the best parts, at least for me, was seeing Wanda Maximoff get a new look. A look that pays homage to the origins of the character, but embraces a modern design, and just makes her look like a total badass. Which I think most of the fans out there have really been craving. Her powers in the MCU haven't always been all that they potentially could be, even though she outclasses almost every other hero in the MCU. But moving forward, I think we are definitely starting to see her break out of the shell, and this costume really embodies that. I am so excited to see her in the Multiverse of Madness. She is gonna be sick. Number 7, Deathstroke. We always gotta include at least one morally ambiguous character on these lists. But at least this time, it's when he was actually acting as a hero. When Deathstroke was the leader of a superhero team, Defiance, he wore an awesome black and white costume. But not only did this costume change up his color scheme, he actually got a cape. Edna Mode would not approve. His black and orange color scheme is definitely a classic, and I'm not necessarily saying this is better, but I mean it comes extremely close. It's better. And the story it belongs to is such a good one. Check it out. Number 6, Superman's black costume. Alright, here we go. Look, he may have a mullet, but Superman in a black costume? I mean, come on. After the Man of Steel was resurrected in Superman Volume 2, number 81 after his death at the hands of Doomsday, he came back with an all-black costume with silver symbol and wrist gauntlet type things. I don't know about you guys, and I know a lot of people hate that mullet, but you put any hero in black compared to their usual color scheme, and I'm here for it. The costume would get a revamp in the Justice League live-action movie when Henry Cavill comes back to life, and it looked even better there. It may not have lasted too long, but I think this costume has a definite place in my favorite alternate superhero costumes. Number 5, Monica Rambeau. When Monica Rambeau showed up in her costume in Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 16, it was a statement. I liked it, honestly. It was simple and unique. I don't really like the underarm wing things, they were kind of weird, but ultimately it worked for the time. She has been around for a long time, being part of the Avengers, Next Wave, and the Ultimates. But it was in the Next Wave number 1 where I think she got the best addition to her costume. All it took was a coat, and she instantly became so much cooler. The color of her under costume changed a bit, which it consistently does, but the jacket has now become a staple, and every time she's wearing it, I am swooning. Number 4, Red Hood. When Jason Todd was killed by the Joker in Death of the Family, it was a huge thing. It was heartbreaking, it was brutal, it was visceral. 6 months after his death though, he was resurrected, and he was restored by Talia al Ghul in the Lazarus Pits. He would join and be trained by the League of Assassins, eventually leaving to pursue justice, although a bit more brutally than before. Entered the Red Hood, and an absolutely awesome new costume. Inspired by the original Red Hood costume worn by Joker, Jason's Red Hood costume is so much better. It's menacing and tactical and badass. I think I have a thing for jackets because, again, I love the frickin' jacket. Number 3, Batgirl Cassandra Cain. Okay, look, we talked about Batgirl in the last point, but we were talking about Barbara. If we want to get really into Batgirl designs that will knock your socks off, we don't have to look any farther than Cassandra Cain. Cassandra is the 4th Batgirl, and she is the daughter of David Cain and Lady Shiva, 2 assassins who raised and trained Cassandra to become the perfect warrior. She became the new Batgirl in Batman No Man's Land, and let me just say, if I was walking the streets of Gotham and I saw someone dressed like this, I would just move, like to a different city. It's so fitting for her, it's intimidating, it's intense, and if I was a criminal, it would give me nightmares. Number 2, Blade. When Blade first appeared in Tomb of Dracula number 10, he had an interesting costume choice. Blade sported a collared jacket with a bandolier armed with stakes, riding boots, and let's not forget the super sweet yellow glasses. More of like a cool pirate with yellow goggles than a vampire hunter. He would have different variations of the costume. One that was actually pretty good was when he wore green goggles, a purple jacket and matching boots, green trousers, and a yellow belt. But in Night Stalkers number 1 in the 90s, he finally showed up in the leather, sporting a leather jacket, all black clothing with the katanas. Of course, this was born out of the 90s, but it stuck. It has evolved over the years, but the key things introduced have stayed. The leather. The leather stuck. Number 1. Storm. The X-Men Storm is one of the coolest looking characters in Marvel Comics, for me. And that fact only gets reinforced in the Marvel Dark Ages number 4, when she shows up in a Wakandan-inspired gold and silver costume. It is absolutely stunning. Storm herself is an extremely fashion-heavy member of the X-Men. She changes up her look often, and it's usually in unique and awesome ways. Like, I really liked when she had the mohawk. But this Wakanda costume just takes the absolute cake for me. It calls back to her original costume from the second Genesis X-Men, but it's regal as hell, which it should be when she's the Queen of Wakanda. The designs are amazing, and if I saw her show up like this, I'd believe she was a goddess too.
At number 10 is Doctor Strange. In his first ever appearance in Strange Tales number 110, you'd almost think that Doctor Strange was a totally different character. He appears as though he's some phony fortune teller at some town fair, to be completely honest. His color palette was yellow and blue, with this bizarre popped collar and streaks of silver in his hair. But over the years he began to shift more into something resembling what we know today. He soon enough dons the red cape, but it's still missing the gold lining, and the medallion on his collarbone seems to be independent of the garment of his cape. Although down the line we do come towards what we know today, it takes a while even seeing an instance where his head is entirely covered in a Deadpool-like mask. He's held back on this list only because a lot of this seems to be a natural process of his costume changing, but he still deserves a spot on the list because of how many different variations there have been. Okay, at number 9 is Captain Marvel. Some might argue that Danvers, in all of her different iterations as Miss Marvel, then Binary, Warbird, then finally Captain Marvel, has been a victim of what a lot of female comic book characters have been subject to, and that this could be the reason for all the costume changes. In earlier iterations, many female superheroes had very revealing costumes that have become a bit more dignified as time goes on, so naturally those costume changes are necessary regardless of what the character is going through. But with the case of Captain Marvel, it could also be argued that these changes were due to her complex and twisting development as a character. A few of the more prominent changes are when she goes from the red, blue, and gold color palette to the red and white look as Mrs. Marvel. Not to mention, during this era, flames are an inherent part of the outfit, emitting from her head, arms, and legs. But even in the modern era, we see a few changes happening in the last decade, with the balaclava and mohawk coming into play for a brief period, then the recent change back to the grayscale color palette. It's a lot of changes and they're not always bad, but it seems like a few times the artists just weren't sure about what to settle on for her. At number 8 is Dick Grayson's Robin, and eventually Nightwing. The Robin mantle has had a lot of changes over the years, and the fact that the character's name even changes from Robin to Nightwing speaks to how many iterations of the costume costume we've seen. Originally, Robin works the red, green, and yellow look with the impossibly tight green speedo and the weird green shoes. But as the character develops and gets a bit darker, he gets some pants, thank the Lord, as well as shoulder pads and armored gauntlets. But eventually, as the character takes on the Nightwing mantle, we see a blue and gold color palette come into play. And even that costume gets a few makeovers, going from the blue to a black and red look, back to a darker, more serious navy blue without the gold. He even appears briefly in a purple hood in a recent issue, but is now back to a black and blue look, similar to his classic outfit. At number 7 is Daredevil. This guy has had a ton of different costume changes over the years, starting with what has become the most unusual Daredevil look of them all, his original yellow and red costume from Daredevil number 1 in 1964. But since then, we've mostly seen him go full red, and although eventually he changes his look so much that he appears as an actual demon in the Hellspawn and Earth X storylines. He's appeared as Captain Universe, with his costume gaining an otherworldly effect with a spacey design and white pants, which is also a first. And if we're to count Dark Devil, we also saw him with pointy shoulder pads as if he were a Mortal Kombat character. Mutant X also gave us a really different look with a half black, half red, skin tight suit with more pronounced horns. The point is, Matt Murdock and the few others who may have taken on the mantle have gone through countless different costumes, and Daredevil continues to be one of the superheroes known for changing it up quite often. At number 6, we have none other than Iron Man. I mean, in his first appearance, he is literally a guy in a big suit of armor, which basically looks like it's more of a hindrance than anything. And Tony only changes the color to gold when he starts fighting with the Avengers. But there have been so many different iterations that I can't even name them all. Even between the 3 self-titled MCU movies, his armor changes a little bit, whether it be the color palette or a slight change in the shape of the armor. But aside from that, we have his Hulkbuster armor, which is an enormous bulky upgrade, then Iron Man Superior, which shows us a silver and blue design, which isn't even iron anymore by the way, it's made of an endosymbiotic substance, offering a whole different look and purpose. So whether he's changing his look to add weaponry like the War Machine suit, or to help breathe underwater like the Hydro or submarine suit, or whether he wanted to go full blue to blend in with his stealth suit, Tony Stark can't seem to make up his mind. And honestly, we can't get enough of it. At number 5, we have Harley Quinn, who is right now a superhero, so I'm involving her in this list. Originally brought on as a sidekick to the Joker in a 1992 episode of Batman the Animated Series, Harley Quinn has become an icon in pop culture, and pretty quickly too. In her first appearance, she had the classic red and black checkered jumpsuit and the jester headdress. But her costume makes a small change between the animated show and the comics, with the checker design shifting slightly, as well as her mask making a small adjustment. And then, pretty quickly, she shifts more in the comics, with her hair starting to show partly in one earlier iteration, then entirely in her 2014 self-titled comic series. Of course, we can't forget about her look in the DCEU, with Margot Robbie's portrayal shifting the character's look into a whole new realm. This naturally influences the 2016 comic series as part of the DC Universe Rebirth, when her hair once again appears entirely free of the headdress, but instead of black and red, it's dip dyed with the now iconic blue and pink, being otherwise blonde. Now, I know that these changes are all natural progressions of the character's costume, but Harley Quinn is also known for changing her look temporarily for circumstantial cases as well, like her hospital uniform, her roller derby outfit, her punk rocker look, and the Task Force X outfit. And who can forget the Gotham Arkham Knights uniform, just to name a few. At number 4, we have Hawkeye. This guy seems to always be wearing something different, and the only constant at this point seems to be his bow and arrow. When we were first introduced to Clint Barton in Tales of Suspense number 57 in 1964, he had a purple, blue, and yellow palette, with a big fat H on his forehead. But soon after this appearance in 1972, he appears in Avengers number 98 with a blue tunic and a headband, looking more like Robin Hood than anything else. And do you remember when he took on the mantle of Golden Archer briefly and had a completely yellow outfit with a cap and feather? Well, that didn't last, obviously, and he was back to a purple hood and jumpsuit. In the 2000s, he shifts to a darker, more modern look, which I personally prefer, and in 2011 we see him don a dark blue uniform that covers his face entirely in the Ultimatum series. Then in Ultimate Hawkeye, he takes the mask off again and has the red and black look with the red goggles, which kind of goes back to corny again. Personally. Old Man Hawkeye changes it up again and comes forward with something like an earthy tone with cloaks. A lot of cloak work in the later years of Hawkeye. Anyway, I had to leave some out because there are so many cases, but let me know what your favorite suits are. And at number 3 we have Wolverine. With a character who's pushing 200 years old, you'd expect him to change up his look a few times, but Logan has made so many aesthetic choices over the years that it's hard to keep count. Originally donning the classic yellow, blue, and black look, he doesn't stick with it for long. Soon we see his outfit go red and yellow in 1980, then full black later in the 80s, and then of course the now classic 2000s look where the jumpsuit is scrapped entirely, at least in the movies. He then takes on the white undershirt and jeans during this time with the dog tag, but then the animated series X-Men Evolution shows him with an orange and black jumpsuit and then a total reversion to his original look in 2004's Astonishing X-Men. He then takes on the black look again in X-Force and then back to the dog tag and white undershirt in X-Men Origins in 2009. It actually just seems like they cycled through his classic looks again starting in 2004 up until the present, when we're back to seeing Wolverine mostly appearing in his casual clothes in the movies and something like the original yellow and blue in the comics, but who knows? I'm sure he'll switch it up again before we know it. At number 2 we have Batman. Of course we do. His costumes have gone through so many different phases, it's almost impossible to keep track of them all. But strangely, his suit hasn't really changed that drastically since it first appeared in 1939. It's just all these different alternate outfits Bruce Wayne has taken on over the years for brief periods that have been so diverse and fun to see, and the reason why he sits at number 2 on the list. Some of my favorite looks he's taken on over the years have been the 1958 Zur-En-Arrh look, the 1960 magnetic zebra suit from Detective Comics number 275. Briefly, it's a weird one, go check it out. The Dark Knight Returns armored suit, John Paul Valley's Nightfall costume starting in 1993, the Batman Beyond look in 1999, and even the Stealth Insider suit after Final Crisis. Then the much darker Flashpoint suit that Thomas Wayne takes on, which adds some red to the equipment belt, which is a really cool change, and they just go on. I could just keep going with them. Batman just won't settle on one look, but it does make sense for a hero that relies pretty heavily on his gear, that his costume would require a change up pretty often to keep him competent on the battlefield. Okay, finally, at number 1, can you guess? Yes, you probably got it, it's the one and only Spider-Man. Do I need to list them? Spider-Man seems to have a suit for everything. And with Tony Stark on his side, he gets some really great upgrades with the Spider Armor, which is personally my favorite line of suits. But even in the MCU, Spider-Man's costumes seem to be a big part of any conversation, only coming after maybe the new casting choice and whether or not the fans are going to be happy. And even within any given movie, we will often see more than one iteration of the costume within a 2-hour span of watch time, whether it's the homemade suit or the symbiote costume or even some version of the Spider Armor. We're so used to seeing Spidey's costume change that it's become part of the experience of the character. And this interest in what this hero wears has been cultivated simply by all the different looks that Peter Parker has taken on over the years. The Future Foundation suit, anyone? That's gotta be one of my favorites.
Number 10, Lady Deathstrike. I'm often torn when it comes to a character like Lady Deathstrike. When it comes to her initial appearance and costume as a villain, it was an iconic and terrifying look for the character. But over the years, I believe we've done right by her to update her look and make her look more refined, but also still terrifying. In fact, the fact that she doesn't always wear the horror of her appearance on her sleeve, broadcasting it for the whole world to see, almost makes her more frightening to me at times. Of course, even without that first iconic look, she still sometimes does like to dress up spooky scary, but I like that now her design usually gives us some more depth when it comes to what kind of villain and character Yuriko Oyama is. Honestly, I also really loved her design in the Messiah Complex. Terrifying, intimidating, but less cartoonish I suppose than her original design. Number 9, King Shark. King Shark is a shark, and has always been a shark, but hasn't always been a great white shark. He's actually had quite a few different looks over the years, although I cannot deny his recent redesign that we got in James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, and which kind of carried over somewhat to his own Suicide Squad spin-off comic series, is probably one of the best ones we've seen in a while. King Shark here is is more a humanoid great white, a beast of a landfish who walks around on 2 feet, but is still tough enough to fall more than 20 stories and still get back up somehow. There is also a sweetness and innocence to this cannibalistic creature that we know as Nanaue that comes across both in his character redesign and costume redesign, with how casually he is often dressed. And friends, before we move on to this next point, be sure to go check us out on Facebook if you aren't already. We just relaunched everything over there. It looks super cool, so make sure if you're on Facebook you are following us. Do it now. I'll wait. Number 8. Poison Ivy. My feelings on Ivy are similar to my feelings on Harley when it comes to her costume design. Although I think when it comes to her overall redesign and growth as a character, I actually feel like her changes have been even more significant in comparison to Harley's, possibly just because she's been around, quite a bit longer. Poison Ivy made her first appearance in Batman issue 181 back in the 60s. The look she sported back then has always kind of reminded me of Peter Pan, a sexy lady version of Peter Pan, but Peter Pan nonetheless. I think it's the tights and the shoes, honestly, and the green, or I don't know, maybe the Jolly Green Giant mascot. Yeah, she also kind of has that look going on, minus the green skin. However, now Ivy generally is depicted with having green skin, but fortunately her outfit has evolved and changed with the times, so she's not like full-on Jolly Green Giant. From her going to what she wore originally, to wearing underwear and an open button-up shirt in the Arkham Batman games, to a full dark green bodysuit in modern comics, to something that pays a little more homage to her original plant-covered look with her Queen Ivy redesign. I gotta say, actually, that Queen Ivy redesign, initially I was like, I don't know about that. And it came around on me. I quite like it now. Number 7. Juggernaut. While Juggernaut still wears his Sidorak armor, even he has seen some major improvements when it comes to his look over the years. And not just in the costume department either. We've also seen this character change a ton as a person, to the point that now he's a lot more anti-hero than villain even. Possibly even bordering on full-on hero, I'd say. Juggernaut no longer actually wears armor given to him by Sidorak because he renounced the god, and instead used materials that Sidorak had left from the times he basically reached out to Earth to forge his own armor. The result is a much more sleek looking design as opposed to the more clunky and stiff looking armor that he wore when he made his first appearance back in X-Men issue number 12. And that look is still iconic, don't get me wrong. It is quite similar to the overall character design, but a few important tweaks over time have greatly improved Juggernaut's overall look today. Juggy baby is looking good. Like that new armor. Number 6. Captain Boomerang. Boomerang. Oh boy, what a long way this character has come. In fact, the main Boomerang that we've come to know in the comics isn't even the same person anymore. Is it still Owen Mercer now? Owen Mercer is the son of the original Boomerang. And even when Captain Boomerang was the OG, George Harkness, he had quite a different look. Captain Boomerang made his first appearance in issue 117 of the original Flash series, where he sported a boomerang patterned outfit, white scarf and white sash. Also his little hat. This look was something. Honestly, it reminds me of like a flight attendant. And I kind of would like to see it come back, even though it's quite a bit more flamboyant than what Harkness wore in later years, and definitely a lot less intimidating. Still, it's pretty fun. Obviously I'm saying it got better as time went on, but I still like this look. Harkness would later become more synonymous with a more street-inspired look, wearing a trench coat and often covered in boomerangs, but not as a pattern, more as like armament instead, so that, he could throw a boomerang and then throw another one. Boomerangs all over the place. Boomerang patterns and blue outfits with little hats. I need to do a cosplay of that original look. Number 5. Trapster. Trapster was once known by the unfortunate name of Paste Pot Pete. Well, he's still not an A-list villain. Trapster's look and name are at least a lot better than what he was originally working with. He was once a villain who simply was obsessed with a glue gun, sticking people in place and sometimes clumsily getting trapped in his own glue. Fortunately, from there the character was expanded upon and changed his name, sick of being ridiculed, making his whole thing more about creating traps than just, trapping people in glue. I think overall a good decision from Trapster's point of view. Unfortunately, many heroes still tease him from time to time, as they still remember the days when he was known as Paste Pot Pete. Yeesh, they will not let him forget. Number 4. Despero. Despero used to have a weird gill side hawk and an orange jumpsuit, but now he's got like a gill mohawk and looks like a badass. For those of you unfamiliar, Despero is actually one of the oldest enemies of the Justice League of America. He made his first appearance in Justice League of America issue number 1 from 1960. In other words, he's pretty old school. Not only has his look completely changed, but his whole deal is pretty much changed as well. When we first met Despero, he was a villain who was all about mind control and playing lots of chess, not known for his physical prowess. Over time, the depiction of this Kalinorian alien villain changed and he became more known for his strength than his fondness of chess and his mind games. Although the modern character of the version from Earth Prime has both super strength and psionic powers. So too did his appearance change, with him trading in that jumpsuit for a cape and, you know, some prominent abs. Cause that's what makes you look scary, I guess. Gotta have the abs, gotta be real jacked. I do like though when he was like, I will play chess with you, ha ha ha, I'm a villain. We need more chess-based villains. Someone make that, please. Number 3, Magneto. Magneto was such a rectangle head back in the day. Don't tell him I said that though, please. I don't want him to come for me. But seriously, when it comes to Magneto's overall look, he's come a long way from just being a pair of piercing blue eyes peering out of a very boxy helmet. His look has always been iconic, that I definitely cannot deny. But over the years, it's become a lot more refined and complex, along with the character. When Magneto first appeared on the scene, he was kind of more of a two-dimensional evil mutant, hell-bent on ruling over the humans and planet Earth, having mutants take their rightful place as the dominant species, Homo superior as they were known. Over time, his struggle became more nuanced as we learned more about his own backstory, which was quite tragic, and how he was mistreated, and it made a lot more sense that Magneto would want to fight for mutants who he felt had been marginalized, as he had been himself many times over through the course of his life. With this depth, his look also gained a lot of depth, and today, no matter which outfit he has on, he generally looks stylish, gentlemanly, and, well, all-powerful. As well he should. That upgrade? That's a 10. Number 2, Ultron. Ultron has come a long way since his first appearance, disguised as the Crimson Cowl in issue 54 of the Avengers, and then introduced fully as the menace known as Ultron 5 in issue 55. Even then, he'd already apparently come a long way from his first model, his first design, which was revealed in a flashback in issue 58 of the Avengers, where this crude yet workable robot calls inventor Hank Pym his daddy. That was quite a crude looking version of Ultron. Since then, Ultron has become more and more menacing in his appearance as time has gone on, with one of the most terrifying redesigns of the character appearing, for me at least, in the alternate reality from Marvel's What If Disney Plus series, where he actually succeeded in taking over Vision's form. The more humanoid Ultron looks to me, which is basically what also has happened over time with his design, with him even at one point fully merging with his father, Hank Pym, in the comics, the more terrifying I find his appearance to be. And what is really the point of a redesign for a villain, if not to make them more menacing, horrifying, and intimidating to readers and the heroes they come up against? I mean, you're either going for more scary, I think, or more depth. Or ideally more depth and more scary. That's the best. Number 1, General Zod. General Zod has received a major upgrade when it comes to his look over the years. Oh my goodness. And this improvement has made him a lot more intimidating when it comes to his overall appearance in the comics. When General Zod first made his appearance in Action Comics in issue 283, we really only saw him in a flashback panel where it was revealed he was condemned to spend 40 years trapped in the Phantom Zone. Oh no! He appears as just a guy in a green uniform, not particularly muscular, wearing little booty shorts? Possibly no pants? It's hard for me to tell if his pants or tights are just the color of his skin or if they are non-existent, as I'm really only looking at, like scans of this. So he's either just running around in green short shorts and matching knee-high boots, or he's got tan pants on. I'm not sure which. But either way, he's got his underwears over his pants or just no pants. Now, General Zod is less associated with the colors of tan and green, and is more affiliated with the colors of black and red, often donning armor in those colors and sporting menacing yet cleanly shaped facial hair, really evoking those kneel before Zod vibes in the present. I mean, I can't even believe it's Zod when you go back and look at that original appearance. Woo! Looks so silly. Number 10, Loki. Loki has shifted so much in comics. He's technically a different character from that original Loki that first appeared in Venus issue number 6 and again in Journey into Mystery issue number 85. Loki's look originally was pretty silly, especially if we're talking about trying to adapt that look to the big screen and make it look menacing. We do get a version of that sort of original costume in the Loki series when we see an older, bitter, and sadder Loki who actually more reflects that original costume and that original Loki. Loki now appears to look much cooler in the comics and is also much more versatile when it comes to their style. This has also translated to the big screen where Tom Hiddleston's Loki has also gotten more and more dapper and stylish as time has gone on as well. At least that's how I see it. Number 9, Harley Quinn. I know people love the original costume, so this might be like kind of a hot take, but I personally think Harley has had so many amazing costumes and looks over the years that have just improved on what was already, well, good. I'm not saying the original costume was bad, to be clear. So yeah, I'm not saying the original costume that she had was at the level of some of the other ones on our list, Loki, being too much, or too ridiculous, but I am saying that I think her design has only really improved with time. It's a compliment, Harley. Take it. Of course, not all of her looks have been winners in comparison to that original look, but I do think that her current outfit has definitely been one of her best that we've seen so far. And then of course there is her whole Birds of Prey looks, which I loved, and her The Suicide Squad DCEU look, which seems to have been inspired by more modern Harley Quinn comics and video game designs. And to be clear, we're talking about James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, not Suicide Squad. Not David Ayer's Suicide Squad. Those are two very different looks, are they not? And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to hear about some more cool supervillain redesigns that we love, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8, the Joker. The Joker is another character who has come a long way when it comes to his different looks. While his iconic face paint has remained, he's had many different outfits over the years, and many different iconic pieces that we would identify as being part of his costume. Purple and green remain the Joker's colors, but instead of wearing a suit with like a ribbon looking tie that kind of reminds me of something like a child would wear, like a kid in the olden days, or some kind of like floppy bolo tie, he is typically seen more in a trench coat that happens to be purple. Also, if anyone knows what that tie is called, it's like a little bow, but it's like a string. Let me know in the comments. I don't know what that's called. I do not know. The Joker looks less ridiculous and more menacing in modern comics, with the pranks of his earlier days also getting twisted along with his appearance. In more modern comic book tales, Joker has also been particularly terrifying, at one point having removed his face and stapled it back on in Death of the Family in 2011, and at another point sporting his own intimidating Joker-inspired batsuit during Joker War in 2020. Both of these are great looks, but very different looks. Number 7, Toad. Toad has also had a lot of different looks throughout the years, with his original one being the most ridiculous. And also fitting, but also so ridiculous. But I'd say the real cool thing about Toad is that a lot of the time his outfits actually really reflect how he's feeling inside and his evolution as a character. This is why at first it's really no surprise that Toad basically is dressed up as a court jester in his first appearances. At that time that was basically what he was, acting as Magneto's often disappointing goon who wanted nothing more than to please his master, but usually kind of failed at doing so. Toad? As time went on, Toad would come to realize that he didn't actually need to settle for Magneto's mistreatment of him, and that he was no longer really indebted to Magneto. In various depictions of the character, he'd become somewhat more independent, and sometimes a lot more Toad-like in terms of his design. Fox X-Men movies, I'm looking at you. And in terms of his roles, he also even went from being a villain at Magneto's side in the comics to kind of a weird ally of the X-Men when he became the school janitor in Wolverine and the X-Men. Remember when that happened? He also at one point got a flaming tongue. So he's changed a lot. I don't know if I'm as here for the weird green flaming tongue, but I definitely feel like his look is a lot better now than it was before. Also like that he's kind of like a hacker now. I think that's cool. Number 6, the Riddler. The Riddler originally looked Jim Carrey levels of Riddler ridiculous when he first appeared in Detective Comics issue 140. And that's not a slight to Jim Carrey, by the way. I still love that version of the Riddler. Just also a side note, when I call things ridiculous or weird, it's not necessarily an insult coming from me. And while I do have respect for the Riddler's original question mark suit, I don't think it's necessary for him to be covered in question marks so that we know he's the Riddler. He likes riddles. We get it. Riddler has had a ton of redesigns since that first appearance, with a good number of his modern takes being much improved on in comparison. Okay, so not all of the modern takes on the Riddler have been great. See Riddler with his hair shaved into a question mark shaped green mohawk. That was a weird time, but overall I think we can say we've seen a marked improvement. I also do love the recent redesign with Paul Dano playing the Riddler in the Batman film. I feel like this design for the character was definitely one of the most terrifying looks for him yet, and also fit really well with his origin and his backstory, and just with the overall tone of that film, which takes inspiration from the comics but very much grounds the character of the Riddler in reality, giving him more power as well in the process. I think. Like when you make it just not about like silly riddles and you make it about like what is the Riddler and why are the riddles and what is this really about? I mean, it's a powerful character. Number 5, Cheetah. I mean, the Cheetah outfit has changed a lot since her first appearance, and so has the character. The first Cheetah villain we were ever introduced to in the pages of 1943's Wonder Woman issue number 6 is no longer the Cheetah we have in comics. Literally. Much has changed about the character, including her identity, her origin, and her overall look and power set. The original Cheetah was Priscilla Rich, a jealous debutante who dressed up in a skin-tight cheetah onesie. It's a look, I gotta say. Now we have Barbara Minerva as the main cheetah, who instead of dressing up actually has a humanoid cheetah form, having been transformed basically by a god. Very different looks and takes on this character, but I definitely say that Minerva's is better overall. Sorry Priscilla, it's just cooler. Like, I mean, then you get to actually kind of fight like a cheetah lady, as opposed to just a lady in a cheetah costume. Number 4, Crime Syndicate. The Crime Syndicate have always been cool, but over the years their looks have gotten a lot more detailed, badass, and in some cases, a lot hotter. I'm here for the sexy Crime Syndicate, I must say. I'm feeling it. The Crime Syndicate are actually one of the earliest villain teams to take on the Justice League, making their first appearance in 1964 in Justice League of America issue number 29. At least the earlier continuity version of that team, that is. Because this is DC we're talking about here, so you know, now we're on Prime Earth and that was before that, but anyways. Back then their outfits were less sleek and more blocky, such was the time. They were also a lot less sexy back then overall as a team, and had a lot less independent flair, with their looks being just a little bit more rough and basically similar adaptations of the team members that they were mirroring. I mean, Owlman literally has Batman's look from like the neck down almost exactly, with only the Stark owl on his head setting him apart. It's a look. Number 3, Kang the Conqueror. Okay, so Kang still looks pretty crazy, even in the comics, but he's come a long way from that wild purple and green eyesore when it comes to his cinematic appearance at least. We saw our first, likely of many, Kangs in the Disney Plus streaming series Loki. Here Kang was played by the amazing Jonathan Majors, and instead of sporting his very blue face and purple helmet, he was dressed simply in a nice purple robe with green tunic, pants, and sandals underneath. A nice nod to the original design while still providing its own unique take on his look, and a take that is quite a bit more sensible and stylish. Still, an air of flamboyance in how he's dressed, but not so over the top that it undermines how intense, inevitable, and intimidating He Who Remains, aka an alternate Kang, appears to be here. Number 2, Lex Luthor. Lex looks a lot cooler and a lot more dapper in modern comics than his original appearance. Remember when he used to wear a purple suit with green pants? What is it with villains in purple and green? Especially over at DC. What's going on over there? It's kind of a very shocking combo of colors, especially for someone like Lex. Although I will admit, put it into a mech type suit, gloss it up a bit, and it works a little better for me. I do like it. Lex used to wear this purple suit with straps crossed over it, and a very Dracula-esque high collar with bright green pants and purple boots. Fortunately, he now more keeps to suit and tie looks, looking a lot more polished and refined, and occasionally mixes in some badass mechanical armor, which makes him look a lot more intimidating than that collar ever did. Number 1, Killmonger. Talk about villains who have seen an upgrade. In Jungle Action issue number 6, we got our first look at Killmonger. I don't even think you'd recognize him today if your main experience with this character came from the Marvel Cinematic Universe film Black Panther and Michael B. Jordan's portrayal of him. The original look for Killmonger involved a lot of spikes, as opposed to a lot of horrifying scars. He didn't initially mark himself for his kills, instead, he was just really pointy. He also wore white pants and a red sash, with no shirt initially. We've come a long way since then, with Killmonger having even been to space and back, where he ruled over the Wakandan space empire. And thankfully his look has changed quite a lot since then. I'm partial to his symbiote look personally, still a little spiky, but you know, it doesn't overdo it. Nothing wrong with a little bit of spikes, you just don't want to have too many.